When the power goes out, the first thing on everyone's mind is, how do I get the lights back on ASAP? And that, my friends, is exactly when the most dangerous mistakes start happening. See, the scary part about generators isn't just the noise, the gas, or the fumes, it's the comfort zone. That feeling of, I got this, I know what I'm doing. A lot of people are doing just fine, right up until they're not. And with a backup generator, sometimes you don't get around to fix your mistakes. We all know the big no-nos. But then there are those mistakes that look totally normal, totally convenient, the kind of things where you think, hey, I do this all the time, no biggie. Those are the ones that'll get you because they don't scare you until the consequences hit the fan. In this video, we're breaking down 7 super common generator blunders, the kind that lead to fires, shocks, carbon monoxide poisoning, or just frying your whole system right when you need it most. The real question is, are you guilty of any of these? Let's dive in. The first mistake is what I like to call the patience test. Picture this. You're halfway through a big game or cooking dinner and the generator starts sputtering. You know it's running on fumes. Instead of shutting it down and sitting in the dark for a bit, you grab the gas can, pop the cap, and decide to give it a blood transfusion on the fly to keep the vibe going. Stop right there. You're doing something we in the tech world call hot refueling. Sounds fancy, right? It's actually just a posh way of saying betting your entire house on a single drop of spilled gas. Why do we do it? Human psychology is weird. We hate interruptions. We want that quick fix so the house doesn't go dark. 1 minute of no power feels like an hour. You tell yourself, I'll be careful. Just a tiny pour. I've done this a million times. But let's look at the facts. When that machine is running, it's vibrating like crazy. The gas tank is sitting right on top of a scorching engine, specifically the exhaust, which can hit hundreds of degrees. The worst case scenario. A little splash from the vibration, or even just gas vapors, which are invisible and odorless by the way, decide to take a stroll. If they catch a whiff of that hot exhaust or a tiny spark from a spark plug, boom. In a split second, your generator turns into a giant torch, and that gas can in your hand becomes the fuel for a disaster. Talk about a one slip and it's over situation. The slow but steady way, don't let your impatience call the shots. The safe way only takes 5 minutes. Kill the load, unplug your electronics. Shut it down, let the engine stop completely. Let it cool, this is the big one. Go grab a glass of water, let the metal cool down. Refuel slowly, and remember, keep that gas can far away when you're done. I know some experts in the comments will say, man, I've been refueling while running for 10 years and never blew up. Sure, you won the first 1,000 times, but the Grim Reaper only needs you to lose once. Are you team convenience or team not burning your house down? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your near-miss stories. And remember, never trade 5 minutes of cooling time for the risk of losing your generator, your yard, or heaven forbid, your family. This gas mistake is scary, but at least you can see the flames. In the next one, we're talking about something most people think they're doing right, but it's actually a silent killer, especially when you put the machine in a spot you think is safe. By the way, if you find this stuff helpful, hit that subscribe button, not just for kicks, but to avoid making a permanent mistake when you're just trying to keep the lights on. If the first mistake was a loud explosion, this second one is a polite assassin. It's silent, tasteless, and it usually waits until you're fast asleep or busy working to make its move. We're talking about carbon monoxide, CO. It's colorless, odorless, and tasteless. Basically, it's a ghost. You can't see it, you can't smell it, and usually you only realize it's there when it's too late. Like they say, the most dangerous thing is the one you can't feel. CO doesn't need a perfectly sealed room to be deadly. A semi-enclosed space like a garage with the door open, a covered porch, or a shed is more than enough for it to build up. It doesn't just float away because you opened a door. It sneaks into your house through cracks, windows, and places you wouldn't even think of. I once heard about a case where the generator was in the garage with the door wide open. The family thought they were totally safe, but within a short time, everyone started feeling dizzy and nauseous. They got lucky and caught it in time. Not everyone gets a second chance. There are 2 schools of thought here. One group says, just have good ventilation, it's fine, I do it all the time. The other group says, you can't see if the ventilation is enough, so don't gamble. I'm firmly in the second camp. The safe way isn't rocket science. Always keep it outdoors. Keep it far away from doors, windows, garage openings, or basement vents. And honestly, get a CO detector in your house as a final line of defense. Sounds a bit over the top, maybe, but as the saying goes, better safe than sorry. If you have to ask yourself, is this spot okay? The answer is probably no. In the next mistake, we're going to talk about something that looks completely harmless, but can spark a fire you'd never expect just by placing the machine a few feet in the wrong direction. In the last part, we moved the generator outside to avoid the toxic fumes. Great job. But here's where a new trap appears. Where exactly in the yard are you putting it? Most people pick a spot based on the 3 C's. Close to the door so it's easy to run in and out, close to the outlet to save on wiring, and close to the wall to keep the machine dry. But in the generator world, convenient is usually public enemy number 1 for safety. You've got to understand a generator isn't just a power source, it's basically a giant space heater. The exhaust can get so hot it'll scorch green grass to a crisp after just an hour of heavy lifting. If you park it too close to your house, especially if you have vinyl siding, that wall is going to start melting like a birthday candle. I've seen cases where people terrified of theft or rain tucked their generator right next to dry bushes or a wood pile. Guess what? You don't even need an open flame. Just that blast of hot air aimed at dry material is enough to start a bonfire right outside your bedroom window. And here's a classic facepalm move, leaving the gas can right next to the machine so it's ready for next time. Remember? Mistake number 1, a plastic gas can meeting high exhaust heat leads to warping, leaking vapors, and boom! You've just cast yourself as the lead in an action movie, and trust me, you don't have the insurance for those stunts. The no-brainer safety rule, keep at least a 5-foot one. 5-meter buffer zone between the generator and anything that can burn walls, bushes, wood, or construction scraps. Check the wind, make sure the exhaust isn't aiming straight at a window or something flammable. Distance is key. Treat your gas can like a toxic X. Keep it as far away from the running generator as humanly possible. I know some of you are thinking, my yard is tiny, if I don't put it near the wall, where am I supposed to put it? Look, I get it, but it's better to spend a few extra bucks on a high-quality extension cord to gain that distance than to spend thousands fixing a scorched wall. How far do you guys usually park yours? Drop a comment below about your yard setup and let's help each other out. All right? You found the sweet spot and the safe distance, but if you're using an old wimpy wire to bring that power inside, you're creating a dangerous bottleneck for your whole system. Now that your generator is safely sitting 20 feet away like I told you, the next question pops up. How do you get the power from that machine to your fridge or heater inside? For most folks, the answer is digging through the garage and grabbing whatever extension cord is lying around. And this is where you're literally strangling your power supply. People judge wires by looking at them, oh, I've had this for years, it's fine. Or if the plug fits, it sits. But in the world of electricity, it fits does not mean it's safe. In the tech world, we use the term gauge to measure how thick the copper core is. Here's the mind-bending part. The higher the gauge number, the thinner the wire. A 16-gauge wire is a skinny legend, fine for a lamp or charging your phone. But if you're trying to run a space heater, a hairdryer, or a fridge, you absolutely need a 12-gauge or 10-gauge, the thick, heavy-duty stuff. Think of electricity like water flowing through a pipe. If you try to force a massive amount of water through a tiny straw, pressure builds up and creates heat. When you use a thin wire to pull a heavy load over a long distance, that wire stops being a conductor, it turns into a heating element. I've seen extension cords melt into the grass or fuse to hardwood floors because the owner tried to plug too many things into one outlet. You think you're powering your appliances, but you're actually turning the cord into a ticking time bomb under your feet. A few tips to keep your hands from getting scorched. Check the gauge. Look at the cord itself. The specs are always embossed on it. Don't use mystery wires on it for your generator. Keep it short. The longer the wire, the more the voltage drops and the heat rises. Use only as much as you need. The touch test. After the generator has been running a heavy load for 15 minutes, walk the length of the cord and give it a feel. If it's noticeably hot, that's not just a warning, that's a crisis in progress. Unplug it immediately. Don't let a cheap cord be the weakest link in your family's safety. If this info is helping you out, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Keeping you guys safe is what keeps me going. Now, you got the fancy cord, but if you're plugging and unplugging things whenever you feel like it, you're basically punching your expensive electronics like your TV or fridge with massive voltage spikes. Here's a truth most people ignore. Your generator isn't an infinite wall outlet. It's a mechanical beast that needs a moment to find its stride. This fifth mistake is the silent assassin of your expensive electronics plugging and unplugging stuff in the wrong order. A lot of folks think, hey, the engine's roaring, we've got power. Let's just jam everything in. Sounds logical, right? Wrong. In the real world, electricity doesn't just click on and stay chill. If the generator is humming and you plug in a device that's already switched on like a space heater, a blender, or your 75-inch TV, that surge of juice is going to punch your appliance right in the face. The result? Sparks, arcing, and electrical shock. To put it simply, it's like someone slamming the gas pedal for you while you're still getting into the car's zero transition. I've seen outlets charred black just because of this one-time won't hurt mentality. Spoiler alert. It adds up. There are two types of people here. The plug and pray crowd who says if it turns on, it's fine, don't overthink it. And then there's the crowd that knows electricity isn't something you play Russian roulette with. If you ask me, I've seen enough fried circuit boards to know the second group is right. The good news, the right way, is dead simple. Just remember this 4-step rhythm. Plug it in while the device is off. Fire up the generator. Let it stabilize for a few seconds, then flip the device switch. Shutting down, switch the device off first, then unplug or kill the generator. That's it. Remember, this safe gear is great, but safe sequencing is what keeps it alive. In the next one, we're hitting the most controversial topic of all, a shortcut many people use because it's cheap and easy, but it packs a punch you won't see coming. This is probably the most debated mistake on the list, and honestly, one of the most dangerous. First off, let's be real. I get why people do it. It's fast, it's cheap, it's handy. You just take a DIY wire with male plugs on both ends, plug one into the generator, the other into a wall outlet, and boom, the whole house has lights. It sounds like a genius life hack, but in reality, there's a reason we call it a suicide cord. Why? Because when one end is plugged into live power, those exposed prongs on the other end are hot. Basically, you're holding a live, unshielded electrical stinger. One touch and you're cooked. No warning, no oops, and it gets worse. If you mess up the sequence, like forgetting to flip your main breaker, you aren't just powering your house, you're sending high voltage juice back onto the grid. Now, the person in danger isn't just you. It's the utility worker trying to fix the lines down the street or anyone else touching the system. Still, there's always that one guy in the comments, I've been doing this for 20 years, never had a problem, you just gotta know what you're doing. But the pros and longtime users will tell you, you can control what happens in your house, but you can't control the whole grid. Here's my take. This is the deadliest kind of mistake because it's usually justified by that famous phrase, I know what I'm doing. Fact-check electricity doesn't care about your experience level. It only reacts to how you wire it. The uncool but safe way. Use a proper inlet box. Install an interlock kit or a transfer switch. Have a clear protected connection system. And if you're not 100% sure, hire a sparky electrician. Think about this. There are ways to save money, and then there are ways to just borrow luck. In our final mistake, we're looking at a situation everyone faces. It's raining, the power is out, and you need to put the generator somewhere dry. This is where the MacGyver instinct kicks in and where the risks skyrocket. We've made it to the final mistake, and honestly, it's the most real-world one of them all. It stems from a cruel paradox. Power outages usually happen exactly when it's pouring rain and blowing a gale. This leaves you with two terrible choices. Leave the machine out in the open to be safe, but watch it get soaked and risk a short circuit. Shove it somewhere dry, but face that sour, silent assassin, carbon monoxide that we talked about earlier. This is when human creativity goes into overdrive with some, let's call them creative, but sketchy solutions. I've seen every DIY disaster under the sun, tucking the machine under an eave and throwing a tarp over it, propping up a folding table as a makeshift roof or hugging it against the house wall to borrow some shelter. Some people even put it in a small shed and leave the door just a crack open. The problem? When you try to keep the machine dry, you accidentally build a gas trap. The heat can't escape, causing the engine to overheat, and that deadly CO gas just sneaks through every crevice straight into your home. A rain solution should never turn into a keep the poison inside solution. A lot of you ask me, so what am I supposed to do? Let it drown. The answer is professional prep, not MacGyvering it at the last second. Get a specialized tent like a Gen tent. These are designed for generators. They cover the top to keep water out of the outlets, but leave all four sides wide open for heat and exhaust to escape. Go for a permanent setup if you use your generator a lot. Build a proper enclosure with dedicated ventilation fans and exhaust piping. The no wet rule. Never, and I mean never, plug or unplug anything with soaking wet hands or while standing in a puddle. Electricity and water are a combo you need to treat with restrained respect. Stay as far away as possible. There's a great saying, better safe than sorry. In the middle of a storm, the itch to get the lights back on makes us shrug and say, hey, this temporary cover will do. But remember, you can buy a new generator, but there are no spare parts for your family's safety. How do you guys shield your generators? Tarps, umbrellas, or did you go all out with a mini shed? I know some of you have clever hacks, but some of them probably make me want to hide under the bed. Share your setups in the comments so we can break them down together. If you've been using a generator for years and never had an issue even while making some of these mistakes, that doesn't mean your way is safe. It just means you've been insanely lucky. And luck is not a sustainable risk management strategy. If this video didn't just entertain you but actually saved you from a bad call during a crisis, consider subscribing. Get this knowledge in your head before the storm hits, not after. We've just walked through the 7 most common blunders, from the obvious ones like hot refueling to silent killers like CO gas and the dreaded suicide cord. Here's the cold, hard truth. Generators don't cause disasters. Our handy shortcuts and overconfidence do. If you've made these mistakes before and survived to tell the tale, don't get cocky. It doesn't prove your method works, it just proves you've got a very busy guardian angel. In the game of electricity and fire, hoping for the best is a losing bet. I know every house is built differently and everyone has their own secret sauce for doing things. Do you have a genius way to keep your generator dry? Or have you witnessed a lesson learned the hard way with wrong wiring? Sound off in the comments. Your real-world stories are the best manual this community could ask for. If this video helped you realize even one small change to protect your home, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. It's not just about supporting the channel, it's about staying sharp and mastering your tech instead of letting it master you. Finally, keep in mind this video is for educational purposes based on real-world experience. Every generator is different. Before you do anything, read the manufacturer's manual, and when in doubt, call a pro electrician. Thanks for sticking with me until the very end. Stay sharp, stay safe, because safety is a choice, not an accident. See you in the next one.